From the Pushy Broad, from the Bronx, New York.
Hello and welcome, Transformation Talk Radio listeners and podcast listeners everywhere. My name is Ellen Stewart, and I am the Pushy Broad from the Bronx. Please welcome to my show, Women Who Push for More. I am delighted today to interview Melanie Wexler. Melanie came to me after answering one of my request for interview for a guest because she felt that she could identify as a Pushy Broad and a woman who pushes for more. I am delighted to have you listen to a career and life coach who focuses on goals, success, and mindset. Women Who Push for More welcomes Melanie Wexler. How are you?
I'm good. Thank you, Ellen, for having me. I greatly appreciate it.
You are welcome. So I sent out this request for interview a couple of weeks ago. What attracted you to that request?
I think what attracted me the most was I feel like more now than ever, women really have to really kind of unfortunately fight for their businesses, fight for their careers, and and even fight for their families. And there's so much happening in our world around us, whatever side of the fence that you fall on. I think that women are I think they're at the forefront right now, and they're in the center of that conversation and all the conversations. And so I truly kind of, when I read it, I identified as being that kind of woman that it hasn't been easy for me in terms of establishing my career, both early on and presently. And I'm a single mom to two older children, and challenges don't stop when they're off and graduated and heading to college. I've one headed to college, one that's graduated from college. And so yeah, it's there's many aspects that I've identified with that, from that.
Well, thank you so much. You mentioned that you had some difficulties or some challenges early on. Could you pinpoint some of those for us?
Yeah. So in 2016, made a decision to leave my career in the recruitment and the staffing field. I was with a company that unfortunately was going through a lot of toxic issues, and I actually probably stayed a little longer. And I always joke to my career coaching clients that I did it completely the wrong way. It would be never the way I would recommend to a client. But I was kind of at my end of my rope. And, I entered 2017 really not having a path. I didn't have a path. I didn't have a plan. And I made some bad career decisions. I truly did. And from that, I, got myself into kind of a financial hole, and, saw the impact of that on my family and on myself. And from there, though, I identified with going through a coaching program that I had a mentor that introduced it to me, and was getting my certification, and focused on that, got myself kind of my life back together, and then really made assessments on friendships, on my career, what I wanted to do, and really took a kind of a whole assessment evaluation of my life at that point, and really focused on achieving what I was going to set out to do, which was ultimately going into the career coaching business. I worked full time during most of 2017 and part of 2018 while coaching full time. I was literally, it was constant. But I was really committed to building this business, and that was the dream that I was going to pursue. And there was a lot of people in the way that said, go get the safe job, go get the, have the security net, have everything. And I don't know that that's ever been who I am. And, even from a young girl. And so, I've been pursuing it since, and I've been able to, build a small little business for myself, and, help both, I help both men and women, and, from all different sectors of the industries. But, I definitely relate to women that, have to kind of, I hate the word struggle, but sometimes we do have to struggle to get there.
I understand. Well, it sounds like you struggled as well. I mean, I'm sure you sound to me like you've had many jobs in your lifetime. but no careers, nothing that you can really sink your teeth into. A job is one thing, a profession is something else, a career is something
Yeah.
else. You also mentioned that you had some very tough times in 2016 and 2017. There were some soul searching, there were some bad decisions that you make. And it's very easy to go down that rabbit hole and not learn from those decisions. But a woman who pushes for more, number one, realizes that she can't keep doing the same thing over and over again and expecting different results. So you've got to do something new. And also that sense of being a pushy broad and not giving up, right? Despite what
100%.
anybody else had said. So here you are. What made you decide to, number one, be an entrepreneur, and number two, focus on career coaching?
The reason I focused on career coaching is I had built a very successful career within the recruitment field. So I was a recruiter for 16 years and I actually fell into that. And I stayed with it. I had some really high successes. I've actually worked through two of the recessions. I've worked when the economy was at its greatest. And so I've seen all sides of it. Um, I think I had been on that hamster wheel for so long that the challenge really wasn't there for me and really wanted to pursue something that I had control over and that I had the ability to say, this is what I'm committed to doing, and this is how I want to help people. So I really wanted to take what happens behind the scenes of recruitment. Um, Recruiters sometimes don't have the greatest of reputations. There are good ones out there. I do promise that, but there's some also bad ones, but that's for any profession. But, and I really wanted to take what happens behind the scenes to the person that's looking for that job and maybe is a little bit lost in terms of what they want to do. And, I work with people now from everything from working on their resume to preparing them for their interviews to giving, we do goal mapping and, we talk about mindset coaching and things of that nature and really helping figure out where do I want to go in my life and how do I get there?
That's wonderful. And I know that our listeners will be very, very interested because we are living in a world where some of us are no longer employed. In fact, a great deal
Yeah.
of us in this country are no longer employed, where some of us have to now understand how to reinvent ourselves in a virtual way. We have to become more adept at technology and embracing that. We are also employed in a situation where we are now looking at virtual things and we're learning new things. So we would be very interested in some very basic but helpful tips and suggestions about how to go about getting something new and or expanding or changing your career in this time. So what can you tell us that will help us?
Well, you made mention of one of that a little bit about flexibility. And I think now more than ever, actually, just recently on my Instagram, I posted what I call the 10 commandments of careers. And one of those commandments is understanding that no job is permanent. I think we fall into a false sense of security with saying this is a permanent position. And the reality is that's never been true. It's probably even more, truer today than it was, 6 months or almost a year. It feels like, I don't know how long we've been in this
Seems like
pandemic
about
at
a
this point.
decade long, right?
I
Seems
know,
like 10
I'm
years
like, I
long.
don't know how long we've been in it.
Yeah.
But that being said, I think that's one of the things is you have to be flexible. You have to be very open-minded. I can tell you that my greatest successes from being a recruiter to being a coach are the people that were really open-minded. I mean, I still had people as a recruiter that were getting jobs in recessions. I still to this day, I just had a client of mine that just landed a new job last week. She just officially got her offer. So people are still hiring and people are still um, you know people are still bringing on throughout this process. However, the thing is, we have to really understand what is the most important values that you're looking for in a career. What are you willing to, what are your must haves? What are your, these are nice to haves? And what are the things that I'm okay if I don't get that? Whether that be working remote, salary, work life balance, things of that nature. You really have to determine I think sometimes we say the word value and people think, honesty and trust and things like that. And I talk about values in the sense of like, what is the most important thing to you with your career? And then you really need to take the time to evaluate what those are and what you're willing to be flexible with.
And
And
I think you're absolutely right. I also work, and I've worked for a very long time in career coaching, although that's not my area at the present moment. Although I do have clients that I work with, and being a human resource director for several years in my past, I completely understand. But as I understand from you, career coaching is much more than let me show you how to find a job and how to put a resume together and how we can prepare you for that interview, because we're talking about that mindset that you keep talking about. Is it a career? Is it a profession? Is it something that you can live with for the long term? Is it going to feed your brain? Is it going to make you feel fulfilled? Those are traits and emotions that don't normally come to mind because most people are thinking, I need a job. I need a
right.
job. I need money. I need to pay bills. But here now, too, you're telling us, you're giving us some hope. You're first telling us to reevaluate how we feel about things. Yes, reevaluate. And now
Yes.
that we have the time, because we are pretty much working from a virtual situation, we get to reevaluate what we're doing. And if we are one of those that is still on unemployment, then we are reevaluating for the first time, maybe in our lives. The best thing that you have said, and the most comforting thing, believe it or not, is that the only constant we understand is that change is constant, which means we cannot look at something as this is the job I'm going to have for the rest of my life. And understanding in many ways that that's a comfort and not something that should produce stress or anxiety, correct?
Correct. Absolutely. I think that sometimes we have to make some short-term changes that may get you to your longer-term goal. And that's really, where you may not necessarily hit. I've had a lot of clients coming from the hospitality industry lately, and some of the big names, out there in terms of brands and things of that nature. And, they're having to learn to pivot, but they're also learning to, maybe if I take this position now and build up some additional skills and experience, I can get either back to where I was, or I can, learn a new industry and show how my skills are transferable. So, it is being, change is the only thing that we're guaranteed in this world. And Lord knows, come this past March when the pandemic, officially hit, at the time I was on the East Coast, where I live permanently, but it was a wake up call. And, I didn't know, being a self-employed career coach, you get a little worried thinking, who's going to hire a career coach now? Like I got worried, but I saw more people realizing the importance of really evaluating their careers, and a lot of people that maybe weren't impacted by, not just hospitality, but it was across the board. It was executives down through, recent college graduates, trying to figure out, how do I navigate this?
So what's it looking like from a professional point of view? You are a career coach. Many people have come to you now because they really do need it. What markets are responding, and what should people be doing and looking for?
Well, there's a lot that's happening in the tech market, and not just, high level tech expertise, but tech companies in general are seeing a boom. There's a lot of those companies, and I'm not talking just the Amazons who, dominate a lot of, people think of that as kind of their wish list, but, some smaller mid-market tech companies that are hiring across the board. They are probably one of the first that were dominating in the remote work industry as well. So they haven't had a lapse of being able to adjust to having remote workers, because they could just carry on with their business as it was. And so I'm seeing a lot with that. And also, I'm still seeing a lot with, of course, healthcare and medical. We're, seeing an increase there. There have been some hits early on, but I think because a lot of healthcare companies had to cut back in different areas to make up for some of the increased costs, but we are seeing a lot within the healthcare and the medical field. And, also I think with accounting and finance, we're also seeing that happen a lot, which is actually a good sign. I can tell you from my recruiting days that whenever I know there's some disagreement in terms of depending on, again, which I'm not going to get into politics, but depending on which side of your fence, there is some disagreement in terms of what's happening with the economy. I personally believe the economy has been is stagnant right now. I think we have increased number of people without jobs still. I think we still have that, which we do need to address. But when you start having some accounting and finance hiring, it's a good indicator that other areas are also going to pick up as well. And so that's a good indication.
That's really good to know. So what kind of advice would you give to, say, the college graduate right now, or the mom, or even the dad that has to reinvent themselves? Should they be going back to school? Should they be looking in different areas? What suggestions do you have as a career coach?
Well, I'm going to go back to the very first thing that I mentioned was flexibility. Be flexible, be open-minded first and foremost. I'm a mom to a 25-year-old who he graduated a couple of years ago. I'm very thankful that he has, actually took a paid internship, but it was to help pay towards his student loan. So he had a really rough first year. I mean, he wasn't making a lot of money. He ended up getting hired, and I don't know, tripling his original stipend that he had received. And now he's set to get another promotion. So I kind of use him as a great example. And I think that's, obviously I understand as a parent, we're not able to, maybe take those kind of cost cutting measures. But if you're younger with a little bit less responsibility, be open to it, be flexible with it, because, that opened a lot of doors for him. And it's really set himself up now to be fairly successful with his career. And, we know that he's going to go to, grad school. We knew that. And now he's, actually starting to plan for it, which I'm finally happy to hear. But as, and as a parent, as an adult, don't be afraid to ask for help. Don't be afraid to seek out advice. I talk to a lot of my clients, and I don't really care about the age per se, but I really encourage them to do what I call informational and networking interviews.
Tell us about that a little bit more in
Yeah.
depth.
So
Information, say that again, please.
informational and networking interviews.
All right, tell us about that.
Yeah, so what I really encourage people to do with these is, gone are the days that you can just apply online and keep your fingers crossed that your resume is going to be seen, because there's just thousands of resumes that are being, sent into these funnels and everything. What I really work with my clients to do is, let's find people that are in the company that you're interested in. Let's find people that are in the industry that you're interested in, and let's get you connected. And see, I have different kind of scripts that I provide to my clients, because some of them are shyer than others. And so you have to kind of work through that. But at the end of the day, really finding people that are in the industry or with a company and asking them questions. Are you hiring right now? How's your company handled the pandemic? What suggestions do you give, being in that industry, that you think I should do? I have a lot of experience with lots of different industries, but at the end of the day, I'm not an accountant. And so, if there's somebody that can give actual industry experience to them and, advice, I find that one-on-one connection is really helping opening doors. It's moving us past just applying online. It's giving a name and a face, and it's bringing people together.
You brought some very good points on, and it's also about relationship building. So let's get some concrete ideas. So are you suggesting that someone doesn't just post generally and go where everybody else goes, like to ZipRecruiter or Career Builder or Indeed? Are you suggesting that's not the best way to go find a job?
So what I actually suggest, I'm still they're still tried and true. That's still how people are getting, jobs. But the reality of it is, and as a recruiter, I can tell you, for one job, you may get 500 resumes. I'm never going to get through 500 resumes as a recruiter. So I may not see that hidden gem that's, number 499 or whatever. So it's actually what I did in 2017 when I was struggling is I applied for a job through LinkedIn. And then and this was before I had my coaching practice. I literally kind of thought, okay, as a recruiter, because I was also a salesperson, what would I do? Well, I would reach out to the hiring manager and talk to them and say, hey, I have a great candidate for you. So I just flipped the script and make that now exactly what I asked my clients to do. And I did it myself. I reached out to the hiring manager. I said, I just applied for this recruiting position. I'm highly interested in it. I would love the opportunity to talk with you one-on-one.
Okay. So did you send an email to them? I mean, how do you find the hiring manager?
So I actually sent them an email through LinkedIn, and I actually got connected with them. I sent them a quick message, and they actually got right back to me. And I can tell you as a recruiter that if somebody sends me a message and says, this is why I want to connect with you, that curiosity is always going to win out. I'm going to stop and I'm going to okay, let me go check out this guy's, or girl's profile, or let me go check out oh, I did just get your resume. Okay. And so all of a sudden I went from being wherever I was in that pile to being at the top of the list.
Right. And also being a woman who pushes for more. Let's not let that go unnoticed.
Exactly. And oftentimes sometimes, that's a great point actually, because sometimes you don't even realize, wow, that was very pushy. but it ended up getting me the job.
That's right. That's right. So what you're saying is, and I've also found when I have given suggestions to the people that I work with in that regard, I tell them that in addition to LinkedIn and Career Builder and even Monster or Indeed or the Ladders or any one of those that everybody goes to, that you should first think about the kind of company you want to work for. When you
Yes.
think about the kind of company you want to work for, then you can decide to go to that company's website. Because many, many times the careers posted on that company's website are not careers that are posted in the normal scheme of things and the normal stream. So I always tell my clients to make a list of all the companies they want to work for. And I tell them to go pie in the sky: Amazon, Disney World, Coca-Cola, Pepsi, General Motors, whatever it is. Put up there your best aspiration. I always tell them, when you wake up tomorrow morning and you're opening your eyes, pretend you've had a wonderful dream. You wake up tomorrow morning and you're doing your best thing. What is that? You're going to your best thing. What is that? And then you begin to see what people really want to do. And
I actually called, Oh, I'm sorry, I interrupted you there.
Go right ahead.
I actually call that my top 10 list. And that was something we did as recruiters, and I actually do something very similar with that with my clients too, is as a recruiter, we always would ask any new candidate that came in, please give us a list of any places that you want to work for. And we want to know where you want to work for. I don't care if they have the job opening right now. And don't even worry about that.
Right.
We're going to talk, there's actually two separate lists. It's the postings you see and the places that that you think you want to work for, and, or, positions that you want to have. Because we can reverse engineer a lot of things. If there's a title that's in your head that this is the title that I want. Okay, let's go figure out who has that title.
Exactly. And I also talk to my clients, and I'm sure you do too. It doesn't matter. Everybody gets hung up on reading the job description. Here's another suggestion. Excuse me. I always tell my clients, you don't have to focus so much on the job description, because they go through all of this and they go through all of the qualifications that job is supposed to have. And if my client doesn't have all of those qualifications, they automatically take themselves out of the running. They turn around and say, well, I don't have all these qualifications. I
Nobody
used to
does.
be a personnel director, so I hired and fired hundreds of people. What I want is someone that's going to catch my eye. And we both know that when a resume is put together and I'm looking at hundreds of jobs, I may spend all of 30 seconds on that resume, right?
Yep.
30 seconds, that's it. So something there has to catch my eye. Then it's the person that you see or what they bring to the table that attracts you. And I can't tell you how many times I hired people not even for the position I was looking for, and I actually created a position for somebody that I thought was worthwhile. And that's the thing that people don't understand. Go to the company you want to work for, do everything you can to get in, and you'd be surprised what people will do for you. Don't you think?
You've got 100%. You've got to fight for it. You've got to fight for it. And when you talked about, you know, when I talked earlier about values of the things that you know, are willing to, that your must-haves and the things that are nice to have and what you're willing to give up, guess what? That's a job description for the company. Okay. That's exactly what that is. It's their wish list. And I guarantee you, I can tell you on there, what are the things that they would love to have. And what are the things that they're probably not gonna, you know, budge on a little bit, depending on the role. And then what are the things they're gonna willing to get rid of? And honestly, that's their wish list. And so you can't be intimidated by a job description, and you've got to have, you know, and I think also, you know, speaking of, you know, being pushy, you have to have the confidence. And even if you don't feel like you have the confidence, you have to, you know, it's the fake it till you make it, you know, syndrome. But I'm a big believer of it, because there's been times I've been low and I've, you know, had to pull everything I can to be strong and to convey that I, you know, am confident in what I'm doing, and I'm confident in my, you know, my, not only my business, but who I am. And that's what people are attracted to. You know, I always tell, nobody's going to hire, you know, negative Nancy. Nobody's going to hire, you know, the woman that's, you know, like meek and, you know, timid. You know, that's not going to get you further in that process, you know, so you really do have to embrace that.
Right. So what you're saying to me is identifying as a pushy broad, and I created a backronym for pushy being powerful, unafraid, self-aware, hardworking, young at heart female. Yes. So one has to go in being a pushy broad, or for that matter, a pushy bro. Yes.
Yeah.
Confident. And even if you don't feel it in your head, you have to give that Academy Award winning performance, because the more you are outward and the more you are confident that you can handle something, the more a company is going to be attracted to you.
100%. 100%. I love it. I love that acronym. So that's wonderful.
So Melanie, do you identify as a pushy broad?
I definitely do. I've had, you know, I look through my entire life and just decisions I made, you know, with I mentioned my 25-year-old, you know, when he was just turning 5, I made the decision to leave Missouri, which I'm actually back home right now helping my mom, and made the decision to pursue a career in Washington, D.C., which is where we've lived. I've lived there since 20 years. So I equate to having two homes, really, you know, because I'm still a kid from Missouri, but, you know, I've lived out on the East Coast now for 20 years. And, you know, I gave birth to automatically a pushy broad 18 years ago. She came out pushy. And so I think she's, you know, has had to teach me how to embrace some of that, and how to embrace people that are not, you know, don't be concerned what other people think of you. And, you know, I've learned a lot from her, you know, from that. She has literally had that personality from literally, you know, I always tell the story. I was on bed rest with her for 3 months prior to her actual birth, and she still came a month early. And we were on all sorts of drugs and all sorts of things to stop that from happening. And
She
she
came
still came
anyway.
early. Yeah. I remember telling the doctor, I was like, this isn't working. She's ready. I know she's ready. And we just need to get it done. Because I was like, I can't stay in bed for another month.
Oh, that's a wonderful story. That's the Pushy Broad from her inception. And what's her first name and what is she
Her
doing
name
now?
is her name is Zoe, and she actually lives in Connecticut with her dad. We share custody, and she has some really great schooling opportunities up there. So she is finishing high school, and we're in the process of college acceptances. I think we're 3 out of her 7 so far have accepted her. She's also a field hockey goalie. So, she's looking to be a major of forensic chemistry. She's really smart. She's way smarter than I ever was. Like, she's in
Wow.
calculus, AP calculus, and all sorts of craziness. But her dream is to we do some mission work in Honduras. I have a nonprofit with my best friend that my daughter's now a part of. But she learned very early on the importance of education from seeing the kids down there, and also what happens with justice. So she right now is looking to be a forensic chemistry major that will probably go on to law school, and wants to help people that are wrongfully accused or immigration issues. That
Wow.
part's still to be determined. But
Wow. That's fantastic. That's really
she
fantastic.
she wants to be the first woman to run the FBI, because it's been 216 years and never had a female director.
Yeah. So, okay. So we're going to look out for Zoe to run the FBI.
Yeah.
That's fantastic. Okay. All right. We're going to absolutely try to manifest that. And then you said you had a son, and what's he
I have a
doing?
I have a son. His name is Jacob. He actually came back home to the University of Missouri because he was born here, so he has a little bit stronger connection to the Missouri thing than because Zoe's an East Coast kid. She's an East Coast girl, 100%. But he is actually now works for a nonprofit in the DC area where he helps inner city school kids, and he helps them prepare them for college. Make sure that they're doing their homework, make sure that they, provides them, counseling. He's doing it even remotely now. So making sure that they have online access, but also getting in touch with them and making sure that they have, the basic needs that are being met from them not being in school that often go neglected. So he's been working with that nonprofit. He started as AmeriCorps volunteer and got paid. I don't, his first year out of college, he literally worked 2 or 3 jobs plus that one, to make ends meet. And, they hired him on permanently. And, that's his dream is always to work with kids. He wants to be a drama therapist one day and help kids. That's kind of both of my children have acted and I don't really actually know where they got that from, because it's I'm like, okay, but they have that in common. And so so that's what he wants to do with kids, is drama therapy. But right now he's working with inner city kids in DC. So
Well, and you mentioned that's wonderful for your son. And you also mentioned something very interesting in terms of the career coaching, that starting out in an internship, whether it's paid or unpaid, if you're fortunate enough to do that, no matter how old you are, is a really good way to ensconce yourself into a company and then hopefully get hired from there. So that's another great tip. And certainly they have had you as a wonderful role model, as a woman who pushes for more. And who were your role models growing up?
I have to say it's funny because I think you appreciate it. I appreciate it much more now than I did when I was younger, because I just thought it was natural. But my grandmother was a doctor. My grandmother was the only, she came from a family of 12, a poor farming family in northern Missouri. And she actually, both of my great grandparents really, my great aunt went on to graduate college as well, and she taught Native Americans on the Indian reservations English, and helped paid for my grandmother to go to college, and was the only female to graduate from the School of Medicine at the University of Missouri, and went on to be a doctor. She didn't have my mom until she was 40, which is unheard of back then. And my mom was born in the early 50s. And so My grandfather was actually he was a farmer. He was a cattleman and a horseman, but he was actually kind of the first stay-at-home dad because my grandmother worked. My grandmother was a chief of staff. And it wasn't until I was much older that like I didn't have a traditional grandma. Like my grandma never baked for us or anything like that. Like, she didn't stay home. Like, we would go to the hospital to see her, or her office on the weekends because she was usually working. So, you know, oh yeah.
First woman to graduate from medical school in the state of Missouri?
One of the first. She was probably one of the first five.
Wow, amazing. And her
So
name?
her name was Dr. Alta Walker Idle. And so she, like I said, I didn't know any different when I was little. Like I just was like, that's my grandma. So, it wasn't until like you get older and then you start seeing other people's grandparents and you're like, oh, that's not what my grandma does. Like that's, like we would go to the hospital and she would like get on the scale and weigh yourself. And like, she would she would let us play with the instruments and all. Like, I mean, it was just, it was very, it was
That's
a very,
marvelous.
it was just like, again, we just never knew and truly didn't really know. And she retired when I was 14, wrote a book. It's called Neon Mountain. I mean, this was before, I think I look now and people are writing, ebooks all the time. And, she wrote a book, she had it published on her own. So it's just, so I definitely look at her as kind of, she definitely set the groundwork for who we are. And
Without a doubt, quite famously, absolutely, quite famously. Good for you. So,
yeah.
if you had to, well, first of all, how can people find you if they'd like to hire you as a career coach? What's the best way for them to do that?
The best way really is on Facebook. It's M Wexler Career Coach. Nothing super fancy, but that's the best way to find me. And of course, I'm also Melanie Wexler Career Coach on Instagram as well. So those are the easiest ways to find me.
Terrific. And if you want to just leave us with a couple of little tips for those of us that are looking for a career, what kind of words would you leave with us today so that we know how to go forward?
The best piece of advice I would tell anybody that's looking for a career is not to give up. It's frustrating. It sometimes feels, it's riddled with rejection. It's riddled with, sometimes feeling like maybe I just don't have what it takes and, self-doubt and things like that. But it only takes one job. It only takes one position, one offer to get you where you want to be. And that's the thing you got to remember. Sometimes we got to go through, 10 interviews to get to that one right thing. And if it's not, and if something doesn't turn out to be what you hope for, then that wasn't the position for you. But that doesn't mean that that next opportunity isn't the right opportunity. So don't give up.
That's a wonderful thing. And can you say something to us out here about the fact that even despite the pandemic, one should continue because it is hopeful out there? Talk to us about that.
100%, because this is going to be, this is a period in time that is difficult. We see a lot of things that are changing. There are some uncertainties, but at the end of the day, people are still hiring. There's still jobs out there. And don't have the mindset of like, oh, well, I'm going to wait this through. No, take advantage of it now. Continue to work towards your goals. Don't, I know the month of March for me, I did take the pedal off a little bit just with a lot of stuff happening in life. And I was like, okay, this is kind of a good time. But, I hit full speed come April, regardless of what was happening with the pandemic. Because my business still needed to grow and I was still going to be successful doing it. And I wasn't going to, let that stop me. And I would say the same thing about anybody looking for a career is that they've got to continue. It's okay to let your foot off the pedal a little bit, to regroup and take a breath, but then you got to get right back in it and keep moving forward.
Melanie, thank you so much for being on my program today, Women Who Push for More. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you so much. I greatly appreciate it.
This is Ellen Stewart, the Pushy Broad from the Bronx, saying thanks for listening. And remember, everybody needs a little push.
From the Pushy Broad from the Bronx, New York.